What did you learn in school that was later proven to be wrong? When we were in school, studies were one of the most dreadful parts of it. Have you ever wondered what the actual use of all the studies would be in our daily lives? Well, it turns out some are useful, while others not so much. Today, our Redditors share their experiences regarding the same and tell us some of the most useless stuff they learned in school. My 5th grade teacher insisted Alaska and Hawaii were the 51st and 52nd state and wouldn't budge when 3/4 of the class told her no. Guess we all know who's more brainier now. That if you ignore a bully, they will get bored and go away. Like, who the f*** even thought of that in the first place? They sure won't. That people thought the earth was flat until the 1500s. Turns out the ancient Greeks figured out not only that the earth was round, but also how big it was by calculating time delays between moving shadows in different parts of the world. No way! That I'm not always going to have a calculator in my pocket. That is probably the one thing that gets me through my daily life. Detention goes to your permanent record. There is no permanent record. There sure wasn't. That blood is naturally blue, and it turns red when oxygen hits it. That we only use 10% of our brain. That's so not true. You can't cite Wikipedia as a source because it is undependable and anyone can change it. The real reason you can't cite it is because it's an encyclopedia, and those are tertiary sources that shouldn't be cited to begin with. Citing an encyclopedia is like saying, I know a guy who knows another guy who claims he did an experiment on this topic. That is shit reasoning if you want someone to take you seriously. The main character in a story can't die. In year 3, grade 3 for Americans, I wrote a short story where the main character died and then the plot continued from the perspective of the villain who killed them. And my teacher, Mrs. Quick, said, "You can't do that," and pretty much failed my story. Talk about a creativity buster, geez. Then I read a few books later in life only to learn authors almost always do whatever the fuck they want regardless of literary device. Not because of using a literary device is a literary device. Come on, guys. That 13 little colonies beat the most powerful army in the world on their own. Reality is, the Americans couldn't have defeated the British without the help from France. At the decisive Battle of Yorktown, there were as many French soldiers as there were colonial regulars, and the British were cornered only because of a French Navy blockade. Plus, Spain also used the opportunity to try to take back Gibraltar, and some local leaders in India used the opportunity to take back some territory. There were at least 44 documented battles during this time that didn't happen in America. It was essentially the First World War. That turned out to be false. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. False. The emotional scars are the hardest to heal. Words do hurt the most. That Einstein failed maths. Something about having to take a test in a language he was unfamiliar with, causing him to fail the tests. That caused the story. That boys are attracted to exposed shoulders. Boys are attracted to whatever they like. If you beat the Elite Four 100 times, you can get Togepi in Pokemon Yellow. Okay, so the school didn't teach this, but I did learn it at school. How often I would use cursive? Yeah, every day now, isn't it? In elementary school, you are taught that your grades matter. Then you get to middle school and you realize that your elementary school grades don't matter, but your middle school ones do. Then you get to high school and you learn that middle school and elementary school grades don't matter. Then in college, you realize that your high school grades were only important for getting into college. Once you graduate college, you realize grades never really matter long term, only work and pay matters. Grades do matter, but it is not the most important thing in the world. There are no stupid questions. Yes, there are. Especially in the workplace, people will judge you mercilessly. So true. That higher education always means higher intelligence. Plenty of people graduating college are ignorant and unintelligent and literally only learned how to navigate the bureaucracy and do the bare minimum when they needed to get the grade. Hell, I'm one of them. I can distinctly remember doing very, very well in my organic chemistry course. For example, a prerequisite course for the major I was in, I work in a field outside my major, and at this moment I couldn't really tell you jack shit about OChem beyond the basics. No way! Men have a different number of ribs than women because God took a rib from Adam and used it to make Eve. I was told by a teacher, very seriously I might add, that condoms and the pill were equivalent to abortion. She said God intended sex for reproduction only. The funny thing is that, like at my age, my mind immediately jumped to the fact that she only had 2 kids. The youngest was like 10. Her husband worked with my mom and was cranky as hell all the time. All of a sudden, I didn't wonder why that poor sucker was in a bad mood all the time. Imagine the rise in population had people actually followed her advice. No one will pay you to look out a window. Made $160K as a welder last year. He proved them all wrong. Number 1, the periodic table includes all elements. It doesn't. A lot are unknown, and it's expanding. And number 2, evolutionary trees, especially of birds. We have less common with birds than crocodiles do, which is their closest sister branch group. That Hebrew slaves built the pyramids and then roamed the desert for 40 years. Last I read, there was no proof that the Hebrews left their lands. Egyptian farmers built the pyramids during their flooding periods, according to Egyptologists. Debate time, guys! If you're speaking in the third person singular and don't know the gender of a subject, default to he. I learned that in elementary school. By the time I got to university, it changed to defaulting to he or she. But the recommended thing to do was use the plural so you could use they. They, in singular tense, were grammatically incorrect because you don't have a subject-verb agreement. Now, it's frequently they, even in singular second person, at least on Reddit. I frequently see people say they when they can reasonably infer the gender from the name, and even when the pronoun usage elsewhere has been explicit. Hey, that's sexist! My 5th grade teacher asked us if we knew which century we were currently in. This was in 1997, and the class answered the 20th. She said we were wrong and to try again, so the next 30 seconds, kids kept saying 18th, 17th, until someone said 19th and she said correct. She was our teacher, so of course we believed her. Cut to grade 8 history, and my teacher telling us to add 1 to whatever year you're referring to, and that's how you know what century you're referring to. Now that's a common mistake by her. Did you face similar experiences? If so, please comment your opinions regarding the same, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button before you leave.